Is Egypt really one of those places most people wouldn't dare to visit? Or is it potentially an upcoming digital nomad location? Well, I wanted to share my personal experience that I have gained during my last trip to Egypt. I wanted to pass on to you my experiences, the people I've met, the experiences I had with the culture, the Muslim culture, during the time I was there. This is something that I wanted to share with you because I think that Egypt is not on a lot of people's radar because it doesn't really rank very high, on the list of top digital nomad locations to visit. And that's because, Egypt is not so well known. It still has some issues, which I'm going to point out here in a bit. It's a really cool place. It has a lot of ancient history to it. And if you like historic buildings, if you like history, if you want to experience something very different, then Egypt may just be the right place for you. And I'm saying this because when I went to Egypt, I didn't really go there with the expectation that I'll be dating women. That was not my intention. Neither was my intention to meet other digital nomads. My intention was to really, experience the culture and get something different out of this trip. And here's how it started. So I decided, I was sitting at home and I felt like, it was summer and it was time for me to go somewhere. And I felt that Egypt would be a cool place, because it's one of those places I haven't been to. And like I said, I was very inspired by the culture, by the pyramids, by the River Nile, and by the resort city of Hurghada, which is located on the Red Sea. It's a very popular tourist destination. I have booked this trip just for myself and nobody else. I didn't go there with anybody, not with my parents, not with my family, not with my friends, not with my coworkers or partners. No, nothing like that. I went there on my own. And if you tell a lot of people, it's like you're going to Egypt on your own, it's not going to be fun, or you're crazy because you're going to all these weird places and you don't have anybody there to help you if anything happens to you. And that is true, but I was just in a very adventurous mood and I felt like I was going there alone because, again, I'm adventurous, I like challenges, and that's what it was going to be for me. So I went to this city called Hurghada, which is on the Red Sea. Pretty nice city, they have a lot of nice hotels, resorts. The seawater during the summertime is really, really warm. It's comparable to Southeast Asia. The outside temperature is definitely hotter than Southeast Asia. It's more dry. It's not so humid because, again, Egypt is a country, of sand. It's a desert. There's not a lot of plantations there. There's not a lot of green spots. They exist, a little bit in the city of Cairo, but not a whole lot. So there's just a desert, so it's pretty dry. And after I was in that city, for a couple days, I kind of got bored because, there's just people swimming in the pool, drinking, and I wasn't into that, the sporting. I can do that at home too. I don't need to come to Egypt to get drunk. I went to Egypt because I wanted to see something I had no chance of seeing before. And so I ended up booking a private car and the driver. I didn't have a driver's license back then, so I ended up booking this car service and they provided a driver, and the driver took me from Hurghada all the way up to Cairo. And when you travel from Hurghada to Cairo, there isn't really a whole lot to see because you're just driving through the desert. So it's really just all sand around you. Well, there's a couple of places where you can stop and have some food, but at that time I didn't really consider those places as safe because, Egypt does have hygiene issues, You definitely should not use tap water to brush your teeth. Neither should you drink tap water. That would be absolutely insane. But anyway, we went there and it took a couple of hours to get from Hurghada to Cairo. I think like 4 or 5 hours. I don't remember exactly how long it took. But we went there and then I went to the Tower of Cairo. There's a lot of cities that have this giant tower where you can overlook the city. And it's pretty beautiful because you can see the pyramids from there. You can really inhale the breathtaking atmosphere. So I really kind of enjoyed that. And I ended up meeting some people there. So now you're probably saying, well, you haven't been there on your own. Well, I just met some people there that I've met online, and I just ended up going there, with them to have a drink up there at the tower and had some chats, talked about the culture, talked about the city that I like it so much, and we went to the pyramids of Giza. And the driver that I had with me, he was very good. He was very instructional. He they have to know this because they are working with tourists all the time. So they explain everything, about how old the pyramids are, that they're named after a certain pharaoh and all this kind of stuff, which of course I don't remember anymore. And I remember myself walking there at the Sphinx, and I remember my sweat pouring down, and I was walking around with a water bottle because it was so damn hot. I just kept drinking, I kept drinking a bottle, and my throat went dry a few seconds later. That's how hot it was. And I wasn't used to this kind of heat because I've never been exposed to it. And then, we walked around there. It was just a great atmosphere. I remember riding a camel. It was great, and obviously I had my head covered up because, the sun was so aggressive, so strong. And I remember riding this camel and getting a little bit away from the pyramid, so we can get a better look at it. And it was just great, to have a look at the pyramids from a little bit further out, and there was nobody around us. It was just the guy with the donkey that brought us there. We had the camel, we had 2 camels, and then I took a photo there. And then, we just looked at the pyramids. But here's one thing that you really need to know. What happened was that when we entered the pyramids, it was a pretty rough experience. You have to go for the checkpoint, and they really check you if you have anything on you, if you have any bombs on you, if you're a criminal, if you have any guns, if you have any knives. They really check on this kind of stuff. And I remember going in there, and you had to pretty much take everything you had, your wallet, your coins, everything. And you know what they did? They kept all the money I had. They kept all the paper money, the coins. They took it all. And they were pretty brutal, actually. Not very friendly, They were like screaming, like, what are you doing here? Like they were, acting, as if they were, the owners of this place, which I guess they were. But still, they took all the money. So one piece of advice that I can give you is if you should go to the pyramids, then maybe don't bring paper money, don't bring any fiat currency, just have maybe a credit card, and then later on you go to withdraw, because if you go inside the pyramids and they take all your money, then that doesn't really do you any good, and you don't need the money there anyway. You can just have a little bit of paper money and you put it in there so you can buy a drink if you need to. And then I remember us, going to the city of Cairo because we wanted to have food. And that was a crazy experience because the driver that I had, we ended up picking up his brother because his brother knew the city a lot better than he did. And then he drove us there, and he drove so fast, so crazy. I've never seen anything like it. It's like when you drive a car in Egypt, there's really no rules. It's much worse than it is in Thailand or Malaysia or Indonesia. If you have driven in any of those countries, they're just going full speed, and they drive very aggressively. So if you're new to Cairo, I definitely don't recommend you to drive a car there. It's probably advisable not to drive a car in Cairo until you have really consumed the traffic rules and that you really know what's going on. I think that's really important. But anyway, then we stopped and we were walking around, and I remember again me holding the bottle of water because I was sweating like a donkey, and all I could do is just drink a bottle of water, like literally, we had the car loaded up with water, and I just kept drinking the water. And then I remember me walking there, and it was Ramadan, and a lot of people looked at me like, really mad because, you don't respect our culture, you don't respect Ramadan. How can you be walking here at this time of the day during this time of the year and be drinking water? For them, it was not understandable. It was ununderstandable. And then one person, with a group of other guys, they walked up to me and they told me that you shouldn't be doing this. And they were almost getting aggressive towards me, And then the driver, he told them, he kind of explained that, well, he's not Muslim, he's Catholic, and he doesn't know about that, and he's just a tourist, and they didn't care about that. If you're in a Muslim country, if you're in a strict Muslim country, you better respect the culture of that country, of the host country, because you need to be like water, you need to adjust. And I didn't know that back then. I didn't know that. And so I just ended up getting into a little bit of trouble, and then we left because they were getting really mad, and that was not good. And then we went to the home of his brother, so my driver's brother. We went to his home, and I met his wife and the kids. They are very conservative people, like Muslim women, when they meet a foreigner, when they meet a stranger, somebody they don't know, they're not even allowed to look that man in the eye because it's like they're insulting their husband, the person they're with. They're very conservative, and I remember me being so thirsty, and I think the water was in the car, and I'm so dumb, you know what I did? I drank the tap water, and that was the worst decision I've ever made, because within like literally seconds I felt ill, really bad, and I got poisoned there for sure. In Egypt, you cannot, under no circumstances, should you drink the tap water in Egypt? Never, ever. It's not safe to drink. Don't do it. Learn from my experience. I got really sick after that, and thankfully we went home. And I still remember at his brother's house, it's pretty crazy because Egypt has a big trash problem. So what they do is they put the trash on the top of the house, because there's nowhere else to put it. And then I remember there was an empty lot right next to their house. It was an empty lot, but the trash was just piled up, like, I don't know, 30 feet high. It was just absolutely crazy. I've never seen anything like it. And it stunk like, it was really bad. And there was a dog, with open wounds. And it was just a really brutal experience. But anyway, I'm probably telling you a lot of bad things and not too many good things. Point is that I enjoyed the time that I had in Cairo. I really enjoyed consuming a little bit of ancient history, a little bit of Cairo's ancient history. There's a lot you need to be aware of. So the traffic's pretty crazy. And then, of course, you need to be very careful with where you eat. If you eat something like salad, because then we went to eat and I had grilled chicken, which I believe was a little bit raw. And how do I remember this? Well, because I remember how I felt after it. But anyway, the salad there, they wash it with tap water. And my driver told me, you can eat anything here. It's safe, it's safe, it's safe. But you need to be careful. Well, in my case, it didn't matter because I already had the tap water anyway. I was already screwed anyway. There's all these travel advisories that will tell you not to eat salad in Egypt because they wash it with tap water and that's contaminated. It's advisable not to eat salad unless, you can buy it or you maybe at a 5-star hotel and you're sure that they didn't wash it with tap water. So really be mindful of these things. Now, if you're an aspiring digital nomad, I have good news because the internet has been improving in Egypt as much as it's been improving in other places like Cambodia. And the question is, how can you live in Egypt, if you want to live there for the long term? If you're so inspired by the pyramids or, maybe you want to be part of an upcoming digital nomad community, then what you can do is, of course, go there, try it out, live on a tourist visa. You can get a couple months and potentially get even an extension. It's possible, and maybe you can turn this even into a business visa. If you start a company in Egypt and if you are ready to pay some taxes there, if you're ready to commit to the country, then you can also turn this tourist visa into something more mid to long term. But the thing is that the visa process, in anything that involves legal paperwork is going to take a long time in Egypt, a very long time. It's one of those countries, where the government officials really take their time with things. So it doesn't happen as quickly as it does in other places like Thailand or maybe Mexico, which you may not consider as being super fast. But if you compare it to Egypt, those places definitely do a much better job at processing visas, and that's something you need to consider. And in case you want to obtain citizenship, there's a couple of options here. Option one would be a $250,000 donation to the Egyptian government. Again, that's a donation, that's the money that you give the government in order for you to obtain residency and citizenship, meaning that is a non-refundable payment. You just cannot get it back. Another way for you to obtain residency and citizenship is by investing at least $500,000 into government-approved real estate projects. So you can choose, from a set of projects that are available at the moment in time you are looking for it. And then that would be a way for you to get residency and citizenship. In case you want to qualify for residency and citizenship by making a bank deposit, there's also two options that you can follow. Option number one is a $750,000 deposit, but it needs to be in the local currency and it is refundable after 5 years. Another option would be to deposit $1 million and have that withdrawn after 3 years. But again, it must be in the local currency. The citizenship by investment option is of course interesting for those that have a good amount of money, that want to live in a country permanently without getting married, without too much hassle. One of the downsides of Egyptian citizenship is that it's just not a very strong passport. You only get visa-free access to 18 countries. So that's one of the weakest passports out there. It's not like a European passport, it's not like a Mexican passport, not like, a tier 1 passport. It just doesn't have a whole lot of weight. But again, for somebody who wants to live in Egypt and who has some money to spend, some money to give away, if you will, then citizenship by investment may be the right option for you. In case you don't want to spend the money and still want to live in Egypt, then you can obviously consider marrying an Egyptian woman. But the problem here is, or the problem that you may run into, is simply that in Egypt, dating outside the culture is just not an everyday thing, and a lot of people are not going to accept it. It's possible, especially if the person you're dating is mixed, if the mother is Egyptian and the father is a foreigner, then chances are it may work. But if she is pure Egyptian, then it may be harder. Again, there are always exceptions, so I'm not saying that it can't work, but again, the odds are not in your favor. If you can get something like a work permit, if you become an English teacher, a foreign language teacher, and you want to live in Egypt, then you could also achieve that by obtaining a work permit. And you could do that, then you can stay in the country for as long as you carry that work permit and work for the company. Another option for you would be to start a company in Egypt. Again, this is a process that involves a lot of paperwork, requires you to open up the company, requires a lot of compliance, requires accounting, a registered office, all the basic necessities that you have in pretty much any other country. What do you think about my experience living in Egypt? And do you have any plans for moving to Egypt anytime soon? Leave a comment below and let us know. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. I'm uploading new videos on digital nomad locations, travel updates, visas, crypto advice, and business advice several times a week right now. I highly recommend that you grab a free copy of my ebook Nomad Elite, the Insider's Guide to Retaining a Life of Freedom. All you need to do is click on the link below the video. And if you got some more time left, check out these videos. Thank you for watching.